Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Steven. You're probably clicking on this video because you're thinking about replacing your EGR valve on your third gen Toyota Prius. You may have a check engine light with a DTC P0401. You may have drivability concerns, misfires, whatever it is, you decided to tackle this job on your own. Well, feel free to watch this video as I put it on time-lapse for you, and hopefully it will help you out. And also, if you're thinking about removing the valve, cleaning it, which is an option, and reinstalling it back together, I've linked a video right above. Feel free to watch that, hopefully that helps. Anyways, after watching this video, if you think this was helpful for you, click that like button, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, talk to you next time.
Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and start by removing the windshield cowl. And the way we do that is taking off these wiper arms, the driver's side, the passenger side. Take the caps off. There's 14mm nuts holding those arms. And then you take a pick tool and pick the clips off of it. Then carefully pry on the cowl itself. We want to go ahead and do this because we want to remove the entire wiper, transmission, and motor, the bottom part of the cowl, and that'll give us in-depth access to our valve. There are four 10mm bolts holding down this assembly. I'm going to go ahead and remove them, take them off. As soon as you take that off, you'll see that you have access to all the rest of the 10mm bolts that are holding down the bottom part of the cowl. And hopefully you won't have a lot of debris underneath. If you do, you might have to get that out by hand, vacuum it, or whatever you please. Hopefully there's no dead animals, birds, insects, bugs, you name it. Now that we have in-depth access, here is what this area looks like. We're gonna work right here where you see me unclipping the harness, and feel free to remove whatever you have to remove to get more access to this valve. Now we're gonna continue to pull back on the hose with this door panel remover tool. It's actually a multi-use tool, one of my favorite tools actually, and I use a 90-degree angle needle nose pliers to pull back on that clamp. This tool works amazing. You just got to work it. Can't be too careful, but you can't be too rough either, because those hoses have been there for a while, so they're gonna be stuck. Do whatever you need to do to pinch off the hose and try not to leak out too much coolant unless you want to refill with a lot of coolant when the job is done. What I'm taking here is a 10mm box wrench, and this is actually a gear wrench, and then I'm removing the nuts off the back. That's two 10mm nuts. There's a gasket sandwich between the pipe that connects to the valve, the EGR valve itself, and the other pipe goes to the exhaust. And you want to go ahead and remove those nuts carefully. You don't want to let that gasket fall down unless you have a new gasket to put in place. And I'm going to use the 10mm socket with a 1/4-inch ratchet and do the same thing in the front. Remove the smaller pipe in the front. That takes two 10mm nuts. Now, even though I removed a few of the things out of the way, and even with the 12mm bolt that was holding, it's actually one of the two that's holding that EGR valve in place, I'm seeing that there's actually more in the way, so I'm going to proceed with removing the air cleaner box. So this is fairly easy. Just go ahead and open up your box, remove the filter, remove the top part, disconnect your mass airflow sensor. There's 3 10mm bolts. Remove that and just pull on it gently. There's also a hose that tightens up to the throttle body opening, but if you're gentle enough, you could pull that and you don't have to get down there. And you can see me using my special tool over here. Again, this is a door panel remover tool, and I'm using that to pull on the valve itself and actually prying out whatever hose is in there too. There's one 12mm bolt again that's down there, and that's holding a valve in place. It's tough to get to. I'm going to use a 12mm deep socket with an extension 1/4 inch, and when I'm going to allocate it in there, I'm going to use my ratchet and break it loose, get it out the way so we can finally get this valve out. So if you're thinking about doing this job yourself, I could advise you that, taking your time is key. Please remove as many things that are in the way for you, but just remember where they are, because you need all the space you can. As you can see here in the video, I have ripped off my gloves, but I finally got the valve out. This is the first time I am taking this valve out and putting a new one in. So in other words, this is the first time I've done this job on this 2011 Toyota Prius. But I do have a lot of experience under my belt. So in goes the new one, and it's just reverse. All the steps from here on now, it's just putting it backwards the way pretty much you just started. Another tip that I have for you is that when you put this valve back into place, make sure that new gasket or the old gasket, if you were using it, are still attached where they should be, and make sure that when you install it, that it doesn't fall out. A lot of times you can never be too careful. A lot of times it falls out and we don't even notice. So what I want to do here is actually I take a little bit, and here's a tip. I take a little bit of a piece of paper and I put it in my 10mm socket, and I'm put a nut right above it. So in other words, this is going to create more of a, it actually acts like a magnetic 10mm socket, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use it to install these nuts. Another tip here is that if you feel like the studs are not coming through the other end of the pipe, and the 12mm bolts that fasten this valve onto the body of the on the side of the cylinder head, just go ahead and shake it. Give it a quick shake as you're moving those bolts, and it should thread right on. You should feel grabbing. Okay, so now that our valve is properly fastened and tightened, we're going to go ahead and continue with putting our hoses back in place. Move your clamps properly, locate them exactly where they were. This is another tip, guys. If you remove the clamp away from the hoses, which you did because that's the only way to move the hoses back, make sure you put your clamps back the way they were facing. In other words, the clamps itself leave prints on the hoses. Put the clamps right where they belong. That way you prevent yourself from causing a future leak. And just continue to reinstall everything back in the order you took them out. Okay, so after you went ahead and secured that valve, put the hoses back in, connected, and your air box and everything is back in, you could proceed with installing the bottom part of the cowl. After that, you installed your wiper, motor, and transmission assembly, bolt that up, put the top part of the cowl back on. Your wiper arms, however, don't forget to connect that wiper motor back in, because you're going to find out real quick that you forgot that next time you're in need of your wipers. If you feel like this video helped you out, please click that like button. If you want to see more upcoming content from me, click that subscribe button. And thank you so much for educating yourself and making progress. Check back in for more upcoming content.